Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live. It's Morris Lilienthal. All right, so if you're like me, you are checking the forecast at night, in the mornings, trying to see what you need to have for that day and the next couple of days. I mean, here in Alabama, as we say, if you don't like the weather, wait 12 hours. It's probably going to change. I mean, we are swinging 30 and 40 degrees. One day I feel like I need to be building an ark, and then the last couple of days here in North Alabama, it's just been beautiful. And so I'm excited to have on today as our guest Danielle Dozier, who is the chief meteorologist at WHNT News 19, based here out of Huntsville, and to talk to her a little bit about her career and severe weather and just forecast in general, and just kind of some weather safety towards the end of our conversation. So I'm excited to have Danielle here. Danielle grew up in Chesapeake, Virginia, and she has an undergraduate degree from the University of North Carolina, Asheville in meteorology. And prior to coming to our area in October of 2021, she's worked in Abilene, Texas, Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, and then last in Pittsburgh before coming here. So excited to have Danielle here in Huntsville, and excited to have her on the Mo Show today. So Danielle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Just came off a week of vacation, been here for a week, and I was really happy to bring the sunshine to you guys.
Yeah, we were glad you could bring it back because I was joking about an arc a while ago. We have had just a bunch of rain here, and we won't blame that on you, but we'll give you credit for the pretty weather.
Yay.
So, folks, if you're watching today's show live on Facebook or Twitter, and you've got a question or a comment, please put it in the video below. I'll watch the comments afterwards. If there's anything we can do to answer any questions after the facts, we'll try to answer those. And if we've got any questions now, we'll try to get to them during our interview today. And share this video out and there's going to be some really good safety information out there, I think, that'll help and try to keep our folks here, not only in North Alabama, but people watching all around the country, keep you safe out there during severe weather, because I know that's something we really want to stress about. So Danielle, I was kind of talking to you right before we went live, and then right then just about all the markets you've had an opportunity to work in, and now that you're here in the southeast in North Alabama. Is there a big difference when you're kind of studying, getting ready to put together a forecast, say in Pittsburgh versus in Huntsville? Is there a big difference in that? Is that something that you're really studying the same types of things, or is there some locality things that are applicable when you're putting together a forecast?
Yeah, there's always going to be a microclimate no matter where you live. There's going to be something that is in your area, whether it's the topography to forecast. And so in Pittsburgh, we had a lot of lake effect snow. And so we had snow that was coming in from the moisture off the lake up north. And depending on where that band sets up, somebody could see a lot of snow, and then maybe a couple of miles down the road, just a little bit of snow. So those nuances, and also, as I mentioned, topography, with having some hills in Pittsburgh, you have certain situations where you could have downsloping winds, where some locations get a little bit warmer than others. And so we do have microclimates, and we kind of use those to our advantage where we forecast. And so here in the Huntsville area and just across the Tennessee Valley, we know we have these smaller mountains, and so those can also have an impact on the forecast. So there is a little bit of that is involved in forecasting, as far as just the local elements that you
Yeah,
have in the terrain.
yeah. And are you learning our small towns? Are you learning some of our towns? I know we've got some great little small towns, and it always tickles me when, even though I've lived in Alabama most of my life and lived in North Alabama since I guess '08, I'll be watching y'all's forecast, and you'll call up. Now, if you're living here, get ready for this. And I'm like, I've never even
Yeah.
heard of that little town, and it's within North Alabama. So has that been a learning curve for you? Getting to enjoy learning all the little towns around North Alabama?
Yeah, for sure. And I learn them best when we do have these types of events of rain where we're actually zooming in on the radar, and then I see a city for the first time. And I also try to study them as well when we don't have weather going
Yeah,
on. But really, when you're up there and you're on the chroma key wall and you're zooming in and you're seeing these for the first time, it can be daunting, and when you're
yeah.
in a new place, because you may not know how to say it. We are given a pronunciation guide when we start, but there are how many cities here
Oh
across the
yeah,
Tennessee Valley. So
yeah.
it's really hard to know every single one of them. And so it really helps when the viewers respond and say, hey, Danielle, we say it this way, because really it can be said anyway, depending on where you live. I mean, there are
Sure.
towns that I have um, there are towns where in Texas, for example, that are pronounced way differently than they look. And I've found that it's the same here in Alabama. So the way it might look to you and read to you is different than how it's pronounced. But I always encourage the viewers to write me. If I'm not saying your town right, I will
Yeah.
definitely get it right the next time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll let you know. They would never let you know if you got a forecast wrong or predicted something wrong. I'm sure they never give you any feedback that way. But no, we do. And we have a lot of great small communities here in North Alabama, and I know we're all, very thankful when you guys are spotlighting and letting us know not only the major metropolitan areas, but all the outlying areas, because those folks are relying upon your forecast and what's going on, just like we are here in Huntsville. So I guess, tell us a little bit. We were kind of talking about, microclimates and how, maybe a little different from putting together a forecast in Pittsburgh versus, say, here in Huntsville based upon our topography. But what's entailed? I mean, when you're getting ready for, say, the forecast for tonight, Friday night, and everybody's looking for the weekend forecast from you, talk a little bit about what are you and the other folks at WHNT doing? What radars are you kind of looking at? Not to get too in the details, but kind of give us an overview of what you're looking at to kind of put the forecast together and how much time is involved in putting something like that together.
Yeah, so for me particularly, I come in a few hours before the show and I sit down with my forecast sheet and I open up the data and I'm looking at all of the surface data, mid-level data, upper air data. And, we can go out, 14 days or beyond in some cases if we want on the data. But the whole idea is to just put your forecast together, get your graphics together. And, we do things like radio and we do web updates. We always are updating our forecast discussions. And if there's anything interesting that's aside from the weather, maybe, for example, we just had Goes Tea that launched, we might write a separate blog for that. So we're constantly updating our website and putting together that forecast by looking at all of the model data. And then we go to air. And so it's kind of a day in a life of what I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, talk a little bit about I was kind of kidding you a little bit and doing, and we love to pick on, when the forecast is wrong, especially if you're predicting snow or a weather event 7 to 10 days out. But I've noticed, at least in the last several years, it really seems like, we had a severe weather event, I think the other week, and y'all were predicting that several days out, and it came to fruition. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad, and I don't know that there was a whole lot of damage. But it's so important that, for us, for planning purposes and making sure that we've got everything in order in case, and we know where we're going to be to be safe. Talk a little bit about how accurate, say out more than 2 or 3 days, do you think your forecasters have gotten in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think for sure they have gotten more accurate. We're always getting updates with model data, whether it's the American model, the European model. I mean, there's so many different weather models that we can look at. And of course, launching these satellites help because they're giving us all of this really awesome data. And so I think over time, we have seen that those extended forecasts are getting better, and they can be better, though, I will say. So there are times where in day 5, day 6, it might look like there's rain, and then you might see the forecast a day or two later, and all of a sudden you don't see the rain in there anymore. So there is room to work. And
Sure.
I think it's a science, and science isn't exact. And so there's always going to be times where data is changing. And that's why we always encourage people to check back with the forecast, because while I think, days 1, 2, and 3 can be really accurate. And as you said, in some cases, days 5 and 6 can be too. There's always room for improvement, right? So I think that, the case where we look at severe weather, because that's super important around here, and we might be saying day 5, day 6 might bring severe weather. It's always important just to kind of stay updated with the forecast, because what we don't know on days 5 and 6, for example, are the little nuances, like what exactly are the severe weather threats. And I think that's the thing that you nail down over time. So while we might have a bigger picture that there's a low pressure system coming in that's going to be sparking severe weather, we will know better what exactly those threats will be and the timing as we get closer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think I think we have, especially here and we want to make sure we're on top of things and do. And I think just, staying in tune, keeping track of the forecast. If you happen to hear something that's several days out, don't just know that then you want to check back in the next day or
Of
two
course,
and
yeah.
kind of start checking back in, and that'll kind of dovetails into some of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about, and that's talking about weather safety and apps and things we'll talk about in a few minutes. But there are just so many great ways now, not just, certainly you want people, everybody at the station wants you tuning into the forecast and the 10 o'clock news, but there are other ways that we can get those forecasts and do, and staying up to date on them is now, thankfully, to our phones and such, is so much more convenient than it used to be. And you guys do a great job of updating the forecast there and making it just much more digestible for us to get access to it. Folks, if you're just joining us, our guest today is Danielle Dozier. She's the chief meteorologist at WHNT News 19. Talking a little bit about how forecasts are put together and the accuracy and extended forecast, and making sure that we check back in if we hear something out on the horizon, and to make sure that forecast is not changed since the last time we heard it. And I guess here it's March 4th, so Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're kind of starting to hit the severe weather season here in North Alabama, and which is the next couple of months. Talk to us a little bit about that, and why do we tend to see more severe weather in the March to May timeframe here in the Tennessee Valley than maybe, not that we can't have it at other times, but why is it more prevalent this time of the year?
Yeah, the spring season, typically, especially across the South and Southeast, is the peak time for severe weather and tornado season. And the reason has to do with your proximity to the Gulf of Mexico. So basically, you're getting this very warm, moist air that's coming in from the south off of a prevailing wind. And you also have these low pressure systems that have cold fronts and warm fronts associated with them that are coming in from the west. And when you have these elements kind of teaming up, you have your warm, moist air, you have lift in the atmosphere. So those elements combined give you that risk for showers and thunderstorms. And then if you have wind shear involved, you can have a risk of whether it's damaging winds or tornadoes. So I think it's the proximity to the Gulf is a big one. And then, you can get some dry desert air coming in from the west, and just kind of that contrast of air masses, just kind of being geographically situated where we are.
Yeah. Well, and then, and then we have the severe weather, and then, the real severe weather, which, we know here in Huntsville, in North Alabama, that, we've had outbreaks of tornadoes over the years here. And I live out in the East Limestone Harvest area, and it's not a day I don't go by where I see sites where homes were from I think it was 2011 tornadoes. And there was just some real severe weather out there back then, and we had a bunch here in Huntsville and throughout Alabama during that outbreak. But what's just kind of general, and we hear it, but I feel like it's almost like, kind of like I think you just took a vacation, probably got on a plane, and it's like when the stewardess gets up to give the safety check, you just kind of tune out if you've flown more than 2 or 3 times. And I hate to say it, but I think a lot of us probably tune out when we hear the meteorologist and other people tell us about what to do during a tornado. But I think it's real important. Talk to us a little bit about, and so especially for parents like myself who have younger elementary, middle school age kids, what do we need to be talking to our kids and reminding maybe our elderly parents and friends about severe weather safety, what kind of plan to have in place, and what we should be doing when you guys are coming on and telling us what's going on?
I think it's really important just to have a plan in advance. And we always say this because you don't want to have a tornado warning that's issued and then you're scrambling trying to figure out what to do. So always have that plan in place. And that could be, okay, we're going to sit down with the family, we're going to look around our house, and we're going to find what is the safest room in our house. And that could be your closet that's interior. It could be a basement. If you have a basement, that could be your above ground safe room. It could be an underground storm shelter if you have one. And so you make that plan in advance of knowing exactly where you're going to go when a tornado warning is issued. And also, if you live in a mobile home, it's important to make friends with your neighbors down the street that may live in a sturdier structure, because mobile homes are not safe in tornadoes. Most of them are not anchored into the ground. Now, some of them can be, but either way, mobile homes are not safe to be in during a tornado. We see so many situations where those get completely destroyed in tornadoes. So we always encourage people that if you do live in a mobile home, to just make sure you have that plan, that if it is going to be a weather day, go stay with your friend or that has a sturdy shelter and be there. And that way, in case there is a warning, you have somewhere to be. And I think just in general, as far as the kids go, we're teaching kids at such a young age now what to do when there's a tornado. If you're at school, you're going, most likely into your hallway and duck and cover. And I think, just educating the kids at a young age is very important. As far as things you can do as well when a warning itself is issued, I always encourage people to grab a bike helmet, and that goes for the kids as well, because debris is the number one killer in tornadoes. And so, I think maybe in some cases it could be a misconception that the wind, we watch so many movies, right, that the wind's just going to pick you up and throw you, down the street. And, there are, in some cases, obviously, we do hear of situations where wind is a carrier. However, what we do know is flying debris is the biggest killer. So I always encourage people to grab that bike helmet, because you can just throw that on. And if you don't have a bike helmet, you can grab a mattress or a bunch of pillows, something to protect your head from flying debris. And also, it's always important to have, in my opinion, tennis shoes on, because if there is a disaster and you're having to walk around outdoors, you don't want to be stepping on nails and debris and things like that. So just a few points of safety there.
Yeah, well, you know what? I hadn't even thought about the tennis shoe part, and because when we're home most of the time, I'm walking around barefoot or sock footed, and have not thought about that at all. And we go get in our little safe place and do, but I hadn't, and I've heard about the helmets, which I think is a great idea, but I have not thought about the shoes. So that I'm learning something today myself.
Yeah,
So,
I have. Oh, go ahead.
Go, no, you go ahead, Daniel.
I have other things about safety I can tell you if you want, but
Sure,
we can move on. I didn't know how much time you have. We can move on.
No, we got plenty of time. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and a lot of people always ask me, if I live in an apartment building, what do I do? And I myself have lived on second story apartments. And so I think in that case, again, it's just really important to make friends with your neighbors that are on the lower level, and, just say, hey, in an event of severe weather, can I come seek shelter in your apartment, because just being on that lower level and away from windows is extremely important. And if you're out on the road, for example, of course, we never encourage anybody to drive and try to escape the tornado that way. If you're in your house, you don't want to leave your house and get in a car and try to outrun it or something like that, because most people don't know exactly where the tornado is going and in relation to them. So if you are actually, though, in your car driving and you happen to see a tornado, or you get the warning on your phone, I always encourage people to, first thing, try to find a sturdy building. So if you are near a building that you can get to, you go there first. And if you don't, you're just literally in the middle of nowhere. You're just going to pull your car over. And a lot of times we tell people you can either get in a culvert or like a ditch if you have one. But if you don't, then you would just pull over and lower your head below, kind of below the steering wheel. So that's a few things if you're on the road. And then the last thing I wanted to just kind of stress, actually two other things that I wanted to stress really quickly.
Please do.
I would say that if you can, and I know this isn't always the case depending on your situation, I would avoid the big box retailer stores as far as shelter, because I've just heard in many situations that the roofs can just come off really quickly in there, and they act as like a wind tunnel. So people are usually surprised when I say that, because I think a lot of people, they think that, and I'm not going to name names, but they think that they're safe in these big, big box retail stores.
Yeah.
Right. So just try to find that sturdy structure if you can. That's not one of those. And I would say that do not rely solely on outdoor sirens, because I have worked places where we have a severe weather event and a tornado would come through at night, for example, and the tornado siren would get hit by lightning. I've seen that happen before the tornado even comes. And in that case, it knocks out the siren. And then, of course, you don't have that warning if you rely solely on the siren. So things like lightning, technical issues, those things can make sirens faulty. So we always say to have multiple ways to get warnings, whether it's your favorite weather app WHNT, yay, Live Alert 19, or NOAA Weather Radio. And of course, your smartphone has the way to turn on emergency alerts for that as well.
Yeah. Well, and I'd encourage folks to do that because we, and really, to be frank, I would encourage you. Weather radios are very, 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 very inexpensive, and you can jump on YouTube if you're, technically declined and you're not worried about how to set it up and do. There's a million videos on YouTube. About
I have
how
a
to
video
record.
on there.
Yep, there you go. And I'll
If you
tell you what I'll do.
check it out.
I'll find that link and I'll drop it in the comments below to
Okay.
do. So, but check that out, and it's very easy to set up. We've got one at our house, and then the same thing with the app, and I've got y'all's app on here to promote that a little bit. But it's great, and the great thing with it is you can the settings are such. This is my experience is that I'll have it set for my locale in case I'm traveling or I'm on the road, but I've also got it set for home. So if something's going on at home and I'm not there and my wife and son are there or doing something like that, or if you've got elderly parents or other loved ones, you can set their locale in there so that way you can give them a call if there's weather coming their way. And I know like when I was watching the severe forecast last week, Ben was talking about, hey, if you know anybody that lives here, or you know anybody, y'all are warning people, hey, if you've got friends or relatives or somebody on the road on 65 approaching here, you need to call and tell them to do because they may not be paying attention to the forecast. And so having these various ways that are very inexpensive and much more reliable are great ways to stay safe because even despite the best forecast, and I know around here that things pop up all the time. You may have what may turn out initially seem like just a regular storm, not thinking there's going to be severe weather. Something can change in the atmosphere, right, Danielle? And it can pop up something pretty quick.
Yeah, and a perfect example is, this week has been gorgeous, and we've known for about a week that we're going to have thunderstorms on Monday, but we're starting to see some signals here in the data that there could be some stronger storms on Monday now. So everything can change. I wouldn't say it changes dramatically, but just like we were talking earlier, we know the broader scale picture of things
Right.
7 days out. But as we get closer to the actual day, we get those little nuances figured out.
Yeah, well, the apps and the NOAA Weather Radio are just great. And the other great thing with the app is you can turn on what types of alerts you do or don't want. Certainly severe weather you want on, but there may be some watches or something, like a flash flood watch or something. There may be something or snow, certain things. There may be certain things you may not want to have, alerts about, but you have the flexibility with the app there. Mm-hmm. The other thing I just thought I'd touch on real quick that I think that y'all do a really great job of, and I would think, and I wanted to get your perspective on, as a part of providing accurate forecasting and interacting with the local folks in the community is social media. And that is, I know that a lot of y'all, you and your team come on live on Facebook Live during a severe weather event. And even if you're not live on television, you may stay live on Facebook or something like that. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that has become part of the mainstream forecasting and keeping the community updated. How do you guys use that, and how does that help you kind of get feedback from the local community as to what's going on boots on the ground in a certain area where there may be some severe weather?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually just having a conversation with some other meteorologists about this the other day and how far social media has become in television and broadcast weather. Because back when, and I don't want to date myself too much here, but back a long time ago when I started in the business, you might have a tornado warning and you might not get it verified because back then there weren't people out taking pictures with their smartphones to show us the tornado. Whereas now you have social media and all different kinds of apps, platforms, whether it's, your Twitter, your Facebook, or your Instagram. So there's so many different platforms that are available for people to send us the pictures and the videos. And of course, we don't encourage anyone to go out and try to look at a tornado,
right.
But if you from a safe place, we've had so many instances where people have sent us from a safe place their pictures. And so we always encourage people that if they can do it safely to send us those. And yes, you're right. Facebook is a huge platform and a huge driver for us as far as just keeping people up to date with severe weather, because, back in the day, if you were covering severe weather and you had several severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings, you were going on TV for it. Well, now you're going on TV, but you're also going on Facebook and you have your live stream link on your station website, so they can
Right.
watch you either on their website or they can watch you on Facebook or they can watch you on TV. So it's like multiple different platforms now that are available. And also I enjoy Facebook Lives because it's a way to maybe alert people in advance of severe weather. So if we know that, for example, I'll just say Monday, for example, we have a chance for thunderstorms. So in the afternoon, before we have any warnings, if we think, there could be some warnings that might be issued soon, we might go on Facebook Live and just start updating people and keeping them
Right.
up to date. Yeah, before warnings even issued. So it's definitely been a great use of the newer technology.
Yeah, I love it because the other thing that I like about it, Danielle, is now with technology changing, years ago when I was in high school and in college and stuff, everybody just really had old school cable television. And
Hmm.
it may have been more accurate. Now, a lot of people have their internet, their television is through their internet, or if they
Hmm.
have satellite. And so if the weather's bad or the internet goes down, your access to watching, the
Hmm.
forecast on traditional cable type TV can go
Right.
down. But with Facebook Live, or I
Hmm.
know through y'all's app, I can get severe. If y'all are on TV Live for severe weather, I can watch it through the app as well. So
Hmm.
we have done that numerous times at our home because we have satellite television, which great for a lot of things. But when the
Right.
weather breaks out, if it starts to rain, it's usually
Yeah.
not going to be the most reliable. So we'll break out the app to do, and it's fun, and I think it lets you folks, at least I've noticed with y'all at WHNT, that y'all just kind of open back and get to know you a little bit better, and you can talk a little bit about. People are asking about, hey, I'm traveling to the beach. What's the forecast? Is it going to
Yeah.
be safe? And it's fun to see y'all interact and do that kind of stuff
Oh,
with your
for sure.
viewers.
Yeah, it gives us a way to communicate with people as well and answer any questions they might have. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, just a great tool.
It is, and I think it gets a lot of bad rap for a lot of things, and it's probably true. But there's a lot of great things to social media, and for forecasting and interacting, I think that is a great way to use that technology to
Hmm.
benefit and potentially save lives. All right, so gotta want to get ready and be mindful of your time and wrap up here as we get through with our conversation today. I know reading online and following you a little bit on social since you've been in town that you're an avid traveler, and that I was reading that you're a big bowler. Let me tell you, I'm terrible. I took bowling. I took bowling in college, and if my grade was dependent upon my score, I would have failed the class. Thankfully, I don't even remember what was dependent on my score. I know I was there every time. We learned how to keep score without using the tech there, the computer, and doing all that. But I know that I was usually just terrible. Where did that come from? Have you had an opportunity to? I know you've probably been real busy here and hadn't had much chance, maybe, but have you had an opportunity to get that? And is that something that you just really enjoy doing in your off time?
I've been bowling since I was about 5 years old. My parents put me in a league when I was five. So I've been bowling pretty much every year since, with the exception of the last few years. I've just been incredibly busy. So I haven't had
Yeah,
a chance to join the leagues that I would normally do. But I'm hoping to look around town and find a league that might work with my schedule. That's the hard thing now, is the
yeah,
schedule. Just being on nights, a lot of leagues are evening leagues, and so I might have to bowl an early morning league or a weekend league or something like that. But I was able to bowl when I first moved here in October. I went over to the lanes and I threw a few balls, but I haven't been able to go back since. So I'm looking forward to finally, once hopefully I'm kind of starting to settle in a little bit more
yeah.
now, and hopefully able to get back out there.
What's your high score?
My high score is a 289 out of 300.
Oh my God.
I bowled it several years ago, so it's not something recent, but yeah.
So who do you think? You think Greg Screws, Siobhan, Rocco? Who would be your biggest challenger on the night crew? Who do you
You know,
think?
that's a good question. I should talk to them about that today, and I'll tell them that you asked me about it because I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's better at sports. I know that Rocco does claim that he's not good at sports. I think I heard him say that this week in one of his segments. So I think he played baseball in school, is what he said. So I'm not sure if he'd be great at bowling, but Siobhan and Greg also not sure. But I would love to take everybody out one day and just go. It'd be fun.
Oh, I think I tell you what, the viewers would love that. I'd love to see that. I know
Yeah.
I always enjoy watching Siobhan's Instagram stuff when she's
Oh.
getting filters on everybody and giving everybody a hard time and doing.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for what you and the team at WHNT does and the weather team to keep us safe and informed. Because, you know, we have a lot of great things about our community, but we do have some severe weather here and there, and it's really important for us to keep track of that. And so, you know, my takeaways from today are, you know, to make sure you've got your app and your NOAA weather radio, have a severe weather plan in place ahead of time, and especially make sure that your children know that, and everybody else in your home knows what to do in case you're not there when something happens, so they're prepared. You know, to keep checking back on that forecast because it could change in the coming days. So, Danielle, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be tuning in to see what the weekend's going to look like tonight at 10 o'clock. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.